The Autism Research Institute relies on the generosity of donors like you to make this webcast possible. If you enjoy this presentation, please consider making a donation. Thank you.
Before we get started, I'd like to introduce our two presenters. Chloe Rothschild is a young adult who has autism spectrum disorder and a visual impairment. Chloe is a young leader for the Autistic Global Initiative, or AGI, and an editor in training for the ARI Adults with Autism eBulletin, Asperkids Advisor of Awesomeness, and writes for Specialism.com and Squag blog. Valerie Paradiz, PhD, is director of Valerie Paradiz LLC, a consultancy that designs curricula and provides technical assistance and strategic development services to schools, universities, corporations, and agencies that support individuals with disabilities. She is also the executive director of the Autistic Global Initiative of the Autism Research Institute. Dr. Paradiz is the developer of Integrated Self Advocacy, or ISA, an evidence-based program that gives teachers, therapists, service providers, families, and people with disabilities hands-on curricula and tools to foster ability in self-advocacy and self-determination. The Center for Integrated Self Advocacy, headed by Dr. Paradiz, also provides online courses and certification in the Integrated Self Advocacy method and curricula. We'll be doing live Q&A at the end of today's webinar, so you can type your questions into the questions section starting now and throughout the talk. These webinars are made possible through generous donor support. If you would like to contribute, please visit our website at autism.com. And now I'm going to turn it over to Val and Chloe.
Thanks, Denise. Welcome, everyone. This is Val Paradiz, and I'm joined by our young leaders, Chloe Rothschild. You want to say hello, Chloe?
Hi.
That you joined us today, and I'm looking forward to sharing a really wonderful project that AGI, the Autistic Global Initiative, has been developing for about a year. And you're actually here on this auspicious day to help us launch this new curriculum for hosting your own leadership summit in your own community. And one thing I want to add is this presentation is for really anyone, whether you're a person on the spectrum or if you're a parent or a family member of someone on the spectrum, if you're a teacher or an educator, a therapist, or even a person who works in any of the DD fields, support person, and more. So welcome, welcome, whoever you are. And one thing I want to point out as we begin is the curriculum we're going to introduce you to during this presentation is written for people with autism to develop and host their own leadership think tanks in their own communities. And they can do this completely on their own using the curriculum or with your support if you're a family member or a professional or educator. So at times you may hear us speak about this presentation from the perspective of someone on the spectrum, since both Chloe and I are on the spectrum. But just know this is a tool for everyone to support people with autism in learning citizenship, self-advocacy, and having ways to give back in their own communities. So with that, Chloe, do you want to advance the slide?
Yeah.
So we want to start out just filling you in a bit on who we are at the Autism Research Institute. The Autistic Global Initiative is a program of ARI. We were born in 2011 as a program, and basically what we are is a committee of adults who are all professionals working in the autism and disability fields who live across the U.S. So we're sort of a I like to think of our staff as a dream team of autistic individuals who provide technical assistance and support to partner organizations so that they know how to better serve us through information that we can provide from our own experience and perspective as people on the spectrum. Some of the things that we focus on particularly are creating curricula and online trainings such as this one. We also have a very vibrant online course. It's a 12-week course for direct support providers to individuals, adults with autism. And to date, we've had more than 1,000 learners move through that course. You can find more information about that on our website at autism.com. And another course that we're going to be launching mid-year this year is focused on employment and how to prepare for an interview and have a successful interview and nail a job for someone on the spectrum. So look out for that, and you'll be getting communications if you're signed up for our various emails and newsletters. And again, if you're not subscribed to those, you can again go to autism.com to sign up for that. So I'm going to pass this over now to Chloe, and she can tell you a bit about our Young Leaders Division.
All right. The Young Leaders Division of AGI, when were we launched, Val?
In 2012.
We were launched in 2012, and there are 4 or 5 of us now, Val, who are between the ages of 18 and 27, and our main focus is advocacy and just teaching and spreading and telling youth that they can do anything they really want to do.
Great. Thanks, Chloe. So one of the projects that the Young Leaders hosted this year in June was a think tank, and we developed the curriculum that you're about to see in the following slides based on this think tank that they put together. They brought together 8 young adults from around the U.S., and it was hosted in Boulder, Colorado, and as their think tank theme or their leadership summit theme, they chose to speak about trauma and trauma prevention. And as we move through today's presentation, Chloe will give you some examples of what that leadership summit was like. It was very exciting and had some very interesting results. And even though today we'll be giving you examples of what their specific think tank dealt with, which was trauma and trauma prevention, you can develop your own think tank in your own community on any theme that you choose. And there's actually exercises to go through in the curriculum for doing just that. So maybe we can move on to the next slide, Chloe. Is that your doggy, Chloe?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm trying to, like, make her stop.
So first I want to point out who can host a summit and where you might find a leadership summit taking place. And the list we have here on this slide is by no means exhaustive. These are just a few suggestions, but really in any situation where a group of autistic people come together, be it in a classroom in a school or in a peer support group, it could be a social skills group at school or in a private practice, faith-based organizations, summer camps, and also one thing that I wanted to write here and failed to do so is on college campuses. For example, if there's a disability club or a diversity club on a college campus, this curriculum is also very suited for that. And again, just to recap what I had said earlier, the purpose of the Leadership Summit is to provide individuals with autism the tools they need to be able to identify issues in their own community that they feel need to change for some reason, things that they are struggling with. It could be transportation and access to transportation. It could be what our young leaders focused on, which was raising awareness about trauma and how it affects people with autism. And so the purpose is to really get very local about your community and help individuals on the spectrum move through a process of identifying what do we want to let others in our community know about, how can we educate them to create change for ourselves but also change for the broader community. And in that way they give back as citizens within their own community. Can you go to the next slide, Chloe? So the curriculum, which is available as a free download, Denise Fulton sent out an email to you earlier with links for downloading all the handouts. Basically, it's a 20-plus page pamphlet that you can print out and make copies of and share with all the participants in a think tank committee to go through all the stages of planning process and then host the think tank. So we've broken it down into 16 steps, and the curriculum has all the things that we know are evidence-based and useful for a variety of learning styles for people with autism, including visual supports throughout and very structured activities to move groups or individuals through the 16 steps. We also have a number of supporting letters and tools that can be used as templates, and I'll explain what those are in a bit, but basically they're a template for, asking someone to sponsor the think tank, a template for inviting participants to be involved in the think tank. So it's really a total package. You don't have to invent the wheel to do this. Everything's there to get started and go from A to B. Next slide, Chloe. So just to give you a sample of what the curriculum looks like, step one is to brainstorm a theme. And there are tips in that right margin, as you can see, about taking turns when you share ideas, listening to others when they share their ideas, being positive about the ideas that you hear from the others in the group, not judging others' input, and basically the team starts out just beginning to brainstorm. And again, this is intended also for individuals who are non-speaking, who may be communicating with devices, so it's important to leave time for them to also participate and be able to give their input, and even leave time for them to process what the exact questions are and what the activity is from step to step. Now you can also break this out and not have the whole group do it all at the same time. Each person can work on this alone if that's a preferred method of learning and processing information. It could also be done alone or with support from a direct support provider, a parent, an educator, or a therapist. Next slide, Chloe. As a theme is being explored and ideas are being discussed, we also have another step where individuals are asked to consider what are obstacles or barriers that they face. And it could be as an individual or as a group as a whole. Someone in the group may not understand, for example, fully what choosing a theme might mean, but as soon as they're asked, what are barriers or difficulties for you right now in your life, boom, you may start getting ideas like, I really want a job, and I'm having difficulty getting a job. So that could become also a theme item. Next, Chloe. So once we move through the themes and get a list, you can narrow them down to a certain number of themes that seem manageable or doable or relevant to the larger group, and then you take a vote. And the vote can be, either weighted with a ballot or by a show of hands. And all of this is sort of demonstrated in very simple language with visual sports in the curriculum. So what you see here is sort of a screenshot of that portion of choosing a theme. Next slide. So once the theme is chosen, then participants move through a process of deciding who will attend and how they will develop a list of participants. Chloe, do you want to talk about who attended our particular think tank that took place in Boulder, Colorado in June?
Sure. All of the young leaders were there, along with some of the adult members of the Autistic Global Initiative were there as observers, and we had a facilitator who did graphic design, and he did graphics and visuals as we spoke, and she came out with 2 large pieces of paper that had both pictures and words about what we talked about throughout the whole thing. And we also had guest observers who worked in the field of autism and supported those with autism, but the guest observers did just that. They observed. They didn't participate.
That's right. That's great, Chloe. Thanks. The young leaders chose a facilitator, as Chloe was saying, who not only had experience working in groups and soliciting everyone's input who was a participant in this leadership summit, but he also was a graphic facilitator. So he covered a wall with a huge sheet of paper, and while he facilitated the meeting, he also illustrated what individuals, participants were speaking about, and helped organize their ideas and information visually. And this was a huge help to those who really need that visual support to help process, exactly what's being said, because quite often for many of us on the spectrum, when there's a lot of verbal interaction, we miss out pieces if we have auditory differences, auditory processing differences, or if we need time to go back and review what was said. The visual elements that the facilitator provided on this big sheet of paper helped young adults participating in the think tank sort of go back and remember certain things that they might want to bring up again later, or just during breaks look at and discuss amongst themselves or with others who were there. So that was a very powerful form of facilitation, certainly not a must, but Chloe, what would you say are the best qualities that a facilitator would have for conducting, and leading a think tank like the one we had?
I'd say it'd be being patient and really being able to take that leadership and just make sure that everyone has a turn and everyone's included.
Yeah, that's great. And one of our young leaders is non-speaking, so we made sure that we provided him with enough time to type and either have someone read his comments aloud or have his device, play it back as an audio message to the group. Okay, I think we can go to the next slide then. So after developing a participants list and deciding who you might want to be your facilitator, as well as who might be the guest participants, then you get down into the nuts and bolts of developing a budget for the think tank. And what we have here is a sample budget, and there is a sample budget just like this in the curriculum, and then there's also space provided to create your own budget right in the curriculum. So here there's just an example of the different budget items, such as the location. Is there a rental fee required, or if not, are you going to get that location donated? If it's in your classroom at school, then obviously that won't be a cost, but it's still good to put it in the budget and decide which of these items you have to either fundraise for or find donors for to help out. Then there's a facilitator's fee, and here in this particular budget, the notes say they're going to ask the facilitator to donate his or her time. And then one important aspect is transportation for participants and their direct support providers, whether that's a parent or a staff member who provides direct support to that individual. Often people with disabilities don't have easy access to transportation, so it's important to make sure if you're going to invite people that you also have a method for getting them there and helping them not be a hardship for them to also get there. Food is important, and any other materials that you might have. So in this sample budget, it's a $350 budget. Can you go to the next slide, Chloe? And then finding a location. Also very important. Again, the location might be obvious and sort of ready-made. It could be, you know, in a school, in a classroom, or in a conference room at a school. It could also be, in our instance, we rented actually a big house. Chloe, do you want to talk about our location and how that made you feel in terms of being a participant in the summit?
Sure. Our location was like a perfect location for our group and our event. It was a big house that had a kitchen and like a back room, and then it had a big open front room, which we used for our summit, but there were also places upstairs and in other parts of the house that people could take breaks in, so it really made for a really good plan out and made people feel comfortable whether they were a participant or an observer.
That's right. And the other nice thing was with the kitchen there, we were able to have someone come in, and actually it was a dietitian who specializes in various dietary needs, and she was able to accommodate every single participant's and observers and any other guests' specific needs. And as many of you likely know about the autism community, many of our members on the spectrum have you know, specific dietary needs, either gluten-free, casein-free, or any number of other food allergies. So with a dietitian there working with us for the meal planning and then preparing it, everyone felt very well cared for, and it actually saved money rather than to have that catered. So that was an incredible plus for us, because the think tank lasted basically a day and a half, so we chose to have a very sort of long think tank, and therefore we had to make sure everyone was well nourished and not suffering, you know, with different GI problems as much as possible. Want to go to the next slide? So then there's a segment among the 16 steps in the curriculum for figuring out who your sponsors might be and what you want to ask of them. You can delegate who will do what. Here there's an example of who the responsible person is for contacting potential sponsors. And as I had mentioned before, in the curriculum itself there are lots of templates and letters. So there's actually a template letter for requesting some form of sponsorship from someone, and basically you can adapt it, fill in the blanks, and that makes it very easy to kind of send out these letters either by email or U.S. mail or any other method that you might want to. Next slide. So these are what the letter templates just look like, and this is the beginning of the sample sponsor request, just so you get a sense of what it looks like. And you know, you can either handwrite one or you can type one using this. You can copy and paste this into something and then adapt it. So it's all there to be, you know, kind of used, and you know, people don't have to spend a ton of time working these issues out, just getting the writing down, and especially for those with graphomotor issues, you know, this is a real sort of help in that, you know, you don't have to go through all these steps of figuring out what you're going to write and what should be in there. It's all there. Just fill in the blanks. Next slide. And just to give you a sense of all the templates, there's a request for sponsorship letter, and then there's letters of invitation, and they're all very different. One for participants who actually participate in the summit, and then one for guest observers, and then another one for support people who are there to support the participants in the summit. And for example, in that particular letter, it's made very clear that if you're coming as a support person, that's really your role. You're not there to speak for the person during the summit. You're there to either help with communication, with regulation, or with other issues that may come up for that individual during the various summit activities. Chloe, do you want to say anything else about how it was when the support people were at our summit and what that was like? Because your mom was there, right?
Yeah, it went really well, partly because I think because they were prepped beforehand via email and before it all started what their role was going to be, which I think really helped.
Yeah, it worked out very well, prepping them. And then our young leader, Jeremy, Cecile Kira, was there with his mother, and basically she participated simply by assisting him with the typing that he has to do and then reading aloud the comments that he made. And then finally, the last template that we have is a ready-made thank you letter for thanking everyone who came as a follow-up. Next slide. Then there's a tool for creating the summit schedule. You can make it as long or as short as you want. It could be 2 hours, it could be 1 hour. One thing that we encourage, which you can see in this day-long summit sample schedule, is that not only did we have breaks, and we took a very long lunch break. That was mainly for regulation purposes, but also we mixed up the activities so it wasn't all just verbal discussion and participation. Chloe, do you want to talk about what those sensory and social scans are, and then after that share with everyone what the art project was?
Sure. The sensory and social scans are part of the Integrated Self Advocacy curriculum, which Valerie developed, and it's really thought out structured plan sheet of papers that really almost like a survey that helps prep an individual for what barriers or challenges that they could have at an event, so that they can then think about what helps support them during that event and how they can ask for that. And then the art project, we did an art project which was ripping out paper or cutting out paper to accommodate various fine motor and motor planning needs. And when we felt calm and when we felt upset or overstimulated. And the art project was great in that it provided a break, so it wasn't just all talking.
That's great, Chloe. Yeah, so everyone had an opportunity to basically visually process and display using various types of paper what they felt like when they were feeling calm and regulated, and what they feel like when they're feeling dysregulated or overstimulated. And one important thing to always include in the schedule, of course, is not just coming in and identifying accommodations so everyone's comfortable, but really stating what is the purpose of this summit. And as you can see, we moved through a process of, first of all, just understanding what trauma is, because that was our theme, and then moving on to a facilitated discussion about trauma and autism specifically, and some top concerns about trauma and autism that the participants felt they had. And you know, just off the top of my head, some of the things I remember being discussed were, for example, being in a school setting and having sensory differences, and those differences either being very minimized or disregarded or looked at as bad behavior. That can be very traumatizing for someone on the autism spectrum if they aren't actually receiving support for their disability, but instead are you know, being sort of treated as if they can control this thing, that they're doing it to disrupt others, or that, you know, they're doing it to get attention. Can you remember anything else that was a top concern for your group at that time, Chloe, during our discussion?
I think really one of our top concerns was education, and how there was a lack of it, and like a lack of community, and how we really wanted to change that.
Yeah. And you know, by the end of the day, they had moved through a process of identifying what their action items for their community will be, what they want to do after the summit. And of course, our young leaders are a national committee, so the work they're doing now following the summit is on a national level, and they're moving through a process this year of identifying what specific action items are they going to work on. And Chloe's already been very, very busy working on this with her own speaking schedule and her presentations involving trauma and trauma prevention. Do you want to share a little bit about what you're doing?
Sure. Even by not presenting on trauma directly, I've educated to prevent it, if that makes any sense. I've given presentations to various schools and educators, and by doing that and by spreading that education of what it's like from my experience and my experience at school, it really kind of, I think, opened their eyes for them and really gave them a chance to really see and to rethink how they're treating and supporting individuals with autism. Just earlier this week I presented at a school, and a teacher at the end during Q&A stood up in tears and saying that she's been a teacher for 25 years, and it was the best professional development she had been to. It just opened her mind.
That's great, Chloe. So, and then, you know, this is again just a suggested schedule, but, you know, you can think about what the next steps are after the summit. What we did at that point in our summit was invite the guest observers, who we really were very selective about who we invited. For example, the director of the University Center for Excellence in Developmental Disabilities at Denver School of Medicine was there with 2 of the clinicians on her team. There were also directors of other youth organizations there, and we invited them into the discussion at the end to speak about what they felt they could do to support the participants in achieving the action items that they had set forth during the summit. So we actually have wonderful, as a result, wonderful partnership with the University Center for Excellence in Denver, who screened our trauma video that we produced and continue to work with us now on developing a survey on the theme of trauma and autism that will be a research project that gets launched later this year. Thank you, Chloe. So we mentioned this before about preparing both the observers and the support providers, support people, and the participants ahead of time. This makes for a smoother sort of summit. You can get a lot more done, and it helps reduce anxiety for those who might not be aware of what the setting will be or who will be there and things like that. So some of the activities that participants did well in advance of even arriving at the summit were practicing how to do an ISA sensory scan and an ISA social scan, which Chloe described earlier. It's just a tool for being in any environment, and you learn to methodically scan that environment for what might be a trigger for you or something that causes discomfort or may make you not even be able to participate or be in that setting. And by going through that scan, then you can develop an advocacy plan for requesting an accommodation. So some people had accommodations where they needed the lighting adjusted or needed to sit in specific places where they had certain types of support for their upper body, needed to sit somewhere with the direct support person right beside them. Others had accommodations where they didn't want their direct support person at all sitting near them. But
or
just
in their vicinity.
Or in their view. And so, you know, a number of things come up from those scans, and by practicing them at home in some other setting ahead of time, they knew then how to use those scans in the summit setting the minute they arrived. And that was the first activity that they did. In the curriculum, you'll receive those scans as a download in the handouts, and also instructions for how to use them, so you can share that with participants so that they know how to use them. And then the other thing that we asked participants to do in advance was create their own introduction of themselves and instructions for doing that. And Chloe, did you find that helpful to prepare that in advance?
Somewhat, but I can't remember if I actually prepared it in advance, like all written out, which some people did, but I kind of just used the instructions to narrow down the introduction that I usually give with my presentations.
Right. You're a pro. You know how to give introductions all the time. Yeah. So, yeah, it gave those who really needed the structure, like, you know, make sure it's no longer than 4 minutes, and write a script if you need to. Let us know if you need supports for presenting that script, things like that. So, the next slide. So, when you host the summit, these are some things to keep in mind. Once you start the hosting, you're kind of through the curriculum and you're actually at the event and doing the event. But to always keep your facilitator keeping everyone on task with what is the purpose of this. We need to arrive at some kind of action items, even if they're very minor, very small. A good example of an action item might be, we're going to give a presentation for our school board, right? Or we are going to meet with the Department of Transportation in our town and share some information about autism and what it's like for us on public transit, and some recommendations that we may have for them. So it doesn't have to be a big national plan or anything significant in terms of lots of work. It could be very simple, just saying we want to speak to the principal of our school, or we want to invite employers in the area to a presentation that we will give on employing people with autism. So it could be a number of follow-up items. And then again, always identifying who's going to support the implementation. Are those guest observers who came going to be a part of that? Is someone else in the school or the organization or among the family members going to participate in making sure that those who participated really do have the support they need to be citizens and get their message out to their community and give back to their community? Next slide. And here's the sample thank you letter. Just as a reminder, that's really the last step in the curriculum. And next slide. And I just spoke about some of these. Let's see if I skipped anything. Oh, finally, also another thing that you can do is the AGI Young Leaders have their own Facebook page. And there, if you or your community decide to host your own think tank or leadership summit, you can send us information about the results and what you accomplished. You can send photos if you like, and we'll post all of that on the AGI Young Leaders Facebook forum. And by doing so, what we hope to do is just create a network of adopters of this curriculum. It's almost like adopting, the model UN, if you will, curriculum that you can get from the United Nations, and, sharing your results with other young adults and adults with autism all over the country. So I hope that what you see here today can help get you started, or at least give you some food for thought about, hey, do I want to do this in my classroom, or do I want to propose this to my peer support group? Or do I just have a circle of friends on the spectrum who might want to do this with me, and how can we go about getting started? Next slide. And just to summarize, these are all the curriculum tools you'll have available to you following the links that were provided. You can download the full 16-step curriculum. You can download this slide presentation as a visual support for the group process if you want to use some select slides from it. And you can see our summit results from our Young Leaders think tank that took place in Boulder, Colorado in June of last year. You can go to the Facebook page for the Young Leaders and see what's posted there. You might get some ideas from other groups who have already hosted their summits and have asked AGI to post information about it there. And you can also share the results of your summit. These are all great curricular activities again, that can be embedded in a variety of learning situations, therapeutic situations, and peer support situations. Next slide. And here are some contacts for AGI. If you want to send us questions about the curriculum and implementing it, you can email us at agi@autism.com. If you want to get more information or see this webinar again, you can go to our website, autism.com, and Denise Fulton, who is our host for this webinar, provided some of that information in advance, and I'm sure she can help repeat that info as we pass the baton back to her for Q&A. I just want to thank Chloe for joining me too. Chloe, you're a real core member of the Young Leaders Division, and we had such a successful summit because of Chloe's participation and that of her peers. So thank you very much for joining me. Yeah. And back to you, Denise.
All right, great. Val, one thing I wanted to ask. I know that I shared this slide deck from this presentation, but I wonder if you could resend me the curriculum link. I will share it with people. Is it the curriculum that we have on autism.com, or is this something different?
It's called Host Your Own Leadership Summit, and it's like a 20-pager PDF.
Yeah,
file.
If you could resend it to me, I'll make sure that everybody who's on the call today gets it.
Okay, yeah,
yep.
I'll do that.
Because
Great.
people were asking about something in addition to the PDF or the slides. Prior to the webinar, I only shared the slides.
Okay, good.
That's typically what we do because we want to make sure people get to hear the information with the PDF. But if you could resend that to me, that would be great.
Sure. It's all in Dropbox, too. All the sample summit from our sample summit notes are there, and yeah.
Okay, I will definitely get that out to everybody.
Great, and in there you can even you'll even be able to access images of the graphic posters that the graphic facilitator created. You can see what that looks like.
Okay, great. We'll make sure that people, and it's fine to share that with everyone on the call, I'm assuming.
Absolutely, yeah.
Great, great. We'll make sure that people who watch the recording also have a chance to get that downloaded. So everybody who's listening, we'll make sure we have that to you today. So people are submitting their questions. One of the first questions that we've got here, it's about identifying participants. So you talked a little bit about how groups can naturally select themselves because you might have peers who are on the spectrum and you might form a group yourself. But if you're an educator or somebody at a parish and you're trying to facilitate this or get this going, what are some strategies that might be effective for encouraging it or recruiting people who might want to take part?
Chloe, do you have any thoughts?
Ours was pretty, I think, weren't the participants pretty drawn out because they were all the youth leaders, but just you put great thought into who would be a good facilitator, and we even had a guest participant.
That's right. We did invite one additional person beyond the young leaders, and I think to answer the question, you know, if you're an educator in a school and you want to find out if a group of students may want to host this, one way to start might be to ask one student if he or she might be interested in this, and then kind of empower that student to share with you who else they feel might be additional people to join in. And one thing that I love about this curriculum, it doesn't have to be all people with autism. It can be other students with disabilities. It could be peers who are non-autistic who are also participating. So I think that, just really, identifying one or two who may, have that potential to be leaders, right, or really want to be empowered this way, and kind of following their lead in who else they might ask, then that could have a real sort of domino effect with time.
Okay, Val, you're going to like this next question. This person is asking about notes or articles specifically about trauma and whether or not there's anything from the Trauma Summit. It's a topic they're very interested in, so I know it's a topic you're very interested in. So maybe you could share about the work you've done in this area, and then let us know if there's anything that resulted from the summit.
Sure.
Val, do we have an eBulletin on trauma as well?
Yeah, we do. Thanks for mentioning that, Chloe. We've developed at AGI both the young leaders and our adult partners, as we call our staff. Over the past 2 years, we've developed a suite of products that are devoted specifically to the theme of trauma and trauma prevention and trauma awareness. And this was something that our executive committee at AGI determined was an arena in our community that needs much, much more attention. Anytime a group of adults with autism get together, in a peer support group and talk, we all start talking about our trauma experiences. And we started to feel that it was really important to not only get the message out that this is actually a really big problem that as a full community we can tackle together, but also provide tools and impetus for people to begin to do that and think about it. So, of course, one of the things we did was our young leaders hosted this summit, and in 2015 they'll be working on some of the action items that were a result of that summit. A lot of that is advocating and raising awareness. They even discussed developing a PSA about trauma and trauma awareness, because one of our young leaders is Danny Bowman, who's an animator in Hollywood. So that's one example. The other example is we developed this curriculum, and you can actually download along with it the results of the think tank on trauma. So there's more information on trauma there. AGI has also produced a feature film on the theme of trauma. It's a discussion among 3 adults on the spectrum facilitated by a therapist who specializes in trauma and autism. And that film is available to anyone on this listening in on this presentation. We have a host a film program where you can bring that film to your community. All you have to do is either make a donation to AGI or pay for one of the adults in the film to come and present in Q&A after the film. And the donation can be of any amount you want, and you can use it as a fundraiser. And so it's a very, very insightful film. It's a 45-minute feature film. And then finally, we're working very closely now with Drexel University's Autism Institute, which is focused specifically on adults, and a therapist there who does research on trauma and autism. And with them, we're also partnering with the UCED in Denver at the Denver School of Medicine to develop an online survey that will be move through IRBs, and it'll be a method of really trying to get a sense of what kind of trauma experiences are people with autism having, and where are we perhaps overlooking possible points of prevention and informed care, whether we're in schools or therapeutic practices or at job sites. So that's all of the trauma stuff that we've been working on, and for those of you who may even be in French-speaking territories, we're now in the process of adding French subtitles to the trauma film. That was a long answer, but I think people might want to know about it.
Okay, great. This person has a question. Does AGI have a film presentation for businesses on how to understand and accommodate those with sensory behavior or social challenges for those with autism?
We don't have that, and I want to say yet, because right now we're actually developing an online course for people on the spectrum, either to complete alone or with support, and what it will be is a series of 5-minute videos. Each of those videos focus on one specific aspect of identifying jobs that are suited to me, the person on the spectrum, preparing for an interview, and then assessing the interview after it's taken place. And because we know, again, through evidence-based research, that video modeling is a very effective way for people on the spectrum to learn skills. We've created these very digestible 5-minute videos. There'll be a total of 16 to 20 of them that bring the person through the whole process of applying for a job and interviewing for it. And so once we complete that, we're very, very interested in presenting the other side of that picture, which has to do with the employer perspective. And so I'm glad you brought up that question. It's something that we'd really like to do after we complete this next course.